Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows.
Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 8 of the season, coming to you today from Long Beach. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Adam Thompson. Guido Marzucchi is our producer for today's broadcast. Well, Adam, second time in as many weekends that we've been to a street track in the Weekend Warriors. Last week it was the Chicago Street Course for the SRFs, and here it's the FFs on Long Beach. This track is historic. It really goes without any sort of introduction, but it's also going to be a rather terrifying day in the office for these racers.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I mean, Long Beach, no matter what car you drive around here, is terrifying. As we watch one of the more terrifying parts of the racetrack through that fountain, the walls close in on the left-hand side very quickly through there. And we've got a pretty big field here today as well. We've got 21 drivers in the field this afternoon. So big field, small street course. It's a recipe for a lot of fun for us up here in the booth.
Yeah, it's a recipe for us to have a good time doing this broadcast. It's also a recipe for the tow truck drivers here on the streets of Long Beach to probably have a steak dinner at the end of the night, because you can imagine they will most certainly be earning it. If anything is to go by, this is probably going to be a very hectic race. This 11-turn street track is infamous in the world of American auto racing. Expecting a lot of fun here today in round number 8 of the season. But as we are still already in the early stages of qualifying, let's have a quick gander at the championship point standings as we head off into this 8th round of the championship. Start off as usual with Spec 1, where even though the gap has come down, it is still a vast yawning chasm between Maurizio Nazelli and Mikey Pollard. Nazelli currently slotted at 625 points, Pollard at 433. That is quite the comfortable gap for Nazelli. That is pretty much insurmountable as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, unless he somehow scores negative points and Pollard just has a clean sweep of the races between now and the checkered flag at the season finale. Ian Anderson is slotted in third, with Richard Harwood and Jason Shen completing your top 5 in Spec 1. We'll take a quick gander now at Spec 2, where Dmitry Lukhanov grabbed the championship points lead a couple of weeks ago and is now 11 points over Kevin Adrian in P2. Paul Jackson is slotted in third, Peterson Rocha in fourth, with Joshua Wilkie rounding out our top 5. While wish Josh well in his recovery. Had a foot surgery done recently, so probably not going to be out there on the racetrack for at least for a little while here in the other Weekend Warriors world. And now we'll look at Masters, where Jurg Mani is your current top driver, 479 points, a current tally for him. Antonio Reese is slotted in second, Jeff Wubker in third, David Lehman and Michael Nelson complete your top 5 in that Masters category. That's how it looks in all of your championship points, and we'll let you all know that today's broadcast is made possible by Adam Bradshaw and the rest of the Weekend Warriors members. And if you'd like to support this absolutely amazing Formula Ford action here on SMB, you can by joining the Slow Motion Broadcasting Discord server and getting in contact with Stevie Ray to put your name or face on this absolutely amazing racing. But Adam, it is going to be a fun one, and this track is somewhat horrifying, for lack of a better term, for these racers.
Yeah, it really is, and you guys are going to have to stand by with me here for just a little while. In case you guys didn't know, I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, and right now the Indianapolis Colts and the Atlanta Falcons are in overtime with the Colts driving to try to take this win, but we are going to watch this as well, I promise you. And like you said, Ron, it is going to be a fun one. I mean, there is draft opportunities. These Formula Fords do have enough draft to really, especially down this long front stretch of shoreline, they can really close in. But the problem is turn 1 comes at you pretty quick, and it's just, the walls here are so close, and you can see the curbing there as well on some of these corners that really do enjoy shooting the race car out into the other side of the track. We're watching here on board right now, I think, with Trent and Kramer. So if we can go on board with Trent, we can go ahead and do that. So we're going to be crossing the start-finish line now. Trent's going to be, well, there he is. Now we're crossing the start-finish line. Excuse me, there's a lot of lines there on the front straight. But Trent's going to be hauling into turn 1 in his crocodile/alligator paint scheme there. Again, very, very long drive. You're going to have to watch the pit exit as well. And you got to be careful not to get the right side tires too far to the right, because you will get a penalty for that as well. It's corner cutting technically. But now through the fountain section, Toyota turn is turn 1, by the way. And here comes, it gets real difficult. Watch the curbing on the right-hand side. It does like to spit the car out. This curbing here on this right-hand corner really likes to upset the car. It gets super wide right out to the wall. Trent does it perfectly right now, going into Tecate turn. Hey, that's what it tells me. That's I've never heard of it called that way, but anyways, gonna be turning right now onto Seaside Way, another very tough corner. You're gonna see a lot of cars getting the wall right there because that tire wall sticks out, and then you get into the concrete barrier as well, and that could cause a massive pile up. So we're just going to have to keep an eye out for that. Firestone corner coming up, another right-hander. Then he's going to start sweeping back left. You want to try to stay as much to the inside of this curbing as you can because you want to stay left for this extremely difficult, probably one of the more difficult corners in iRacing. You come back onto Shoreline Drive and going to be moving down the front straight here. And again, another very, very long straightaway. Let's see where Trent gets this. Looked like a pretty good lap from his onboard. It was not. It was 26.425. He does not improve.
Yeah, but still a good performance from Trent Kramer, slotted in 6th at the moment, and only has about 6.5 tenths of a second between himself and your current provisional pole sitter of Chris Cash in the number 50 car. We follow him, adding his way around the start-finish straightaway. They don't mark that off as a turn. You have to wait until here, the first heavy braking zone, to note of turn number 1. And look at the lines as you head your way off through there. The blue line that you could just barely catch in the left-hand corner of your screen is actually the pit exit line. So these competitors, they get caught out by that. We usually see it when it comes to a race here at Long Beach. I think Antonio Reese even got caught out by that last season. But another point that he raised there, Adam, talking about the curbs around this track, there aren't a lot of them, but the ones that are there are pretty nasty.
They are. I mean, in the corner, I think it's turn 6, the right-hander that takes you out onto the back straight there. It's a very unassuming curb. It really is. But we're actually going to watch him, I think, drive through here, unless we already missed it. We have, I believe. They had already gone through the fountain section. But, yeah, it's just an unassuming corner, but it will upset the rear end of the car to no end. I mean, it's really not even, it doesn't look that bad. But yeah, for some reason, the way that it's not even the candy cane, the red and white curbing. There are like some small sausage curbs there as well that really like to get up underneath the car, knock the rear end around, and really cause some issues. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that for most of the races. Mikey Pollard runs a 25.696, runs the fastest lap of this qualifying so far.
And as we get into crunch time, these competitors going to look to try and stake their claims on some good times. Now, I'm actually going to amend the statement that I made a little bit earlier on in this broadcast. Here's a new one. We've got Antonio with
oh yes,
Bond. Look there. That is fascinating. So 007
Double O Tonio.
Antonio Reese. Double O Tony. I like that. That's good.
Got Double O Tonio here today, and right now he is above his championship rival and very good friend Jorg Mani by 2 positions. Jorg had a bit of an issue before we came on to the broadcast. By the way, go Colts. They just won the game, so now I can go back and actually talk about what we're doing here. Jorg had a bit of an issue about 3 minutes into qualifying. It sounds like there was some argy-bargy going on there, but so that probably did not help his hopes, because you do have to, as the fuel starts to come out of these cars, the tires get warm, you will see the faster laps start to come in towards the end of the session. So that may have hurt Jorg just a little bit, but it doesn't matter right now because Antonio Reese is sitting up there, P5, and this is a close enough battle in the Masters division, Ron, that they really do need to, they need all the points they can get.
Yes, that Masters category is always incredibly competitive, and throughout this season, one of the names that we have seen in that Masters category, a return into the Masters class, if my memory serves me correctly, Andrew Love. He's really given us a lot to talk about over on the Spec Race Report on the Formula V side of things. Don't think we've seen him too much here in these Formula Fords, but nonetheless, always nice to see that Masters category be as competitive as it always is. I do want to raise, though, as we get to the end of this qualifying session with Mikey Pollard, assuming that top spot. I will amend the statement that I made when we were going through the championship points. You know how I said that Maurizio Nazelli was holding on to a very good lead in that category? There's actually some news that came out between last week's events and this week here that Maurizio is not going to be out on the racetrack for the foreseeable future. He's got some heel spurs at the present moment, so he is taking time out of the sim rig to recover. So we wish him nothing but the best. But Mikey Pollard going to potentially assume that spot, considering that that there is a decent amount of this season left to go. You can very well reel in that gap between now and the checkered flag. Feels a little bit odd raising the championship situations when we're talking about a driver suffering any sort of ailment, but we're broadcasters. We have to talk about that as well, but certainly wishing Maurizio the best as we get closer and closer to the end of 2025 and move along throughout the rest of this season. Only going to have 4 more races once we're done with this race here at Long Beach, so it feels like time is running out for these competitors to try and have a good run in season 4 of 25.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like we do have a grid here, and we've got 25 cars to get through in a shorter pace lap. We're not going to run the whole thing. So starting in P1 is going to be Mikey Pollard with Chris Cash on his right. Dmitry Lukanov starting in P3 with Andrew Moran in 4th. Antonio Reese, the first master, and he needs this. He needs to stay ahead of Jorg Mani, who's back there in 7th. But splitting those two is going to be Trenton Kramer in 6th. Richard Harwood in 8th with Peterson Roca starting in P9. David Lehman in 10th, Alan DeGasis in 11th with Daniel Verone starting in 12th. 13th place is going to be Ian Anderson with Dan Witzak in 14th. Stevie Ray, league owner, in 15th position with Kevin Adrian in 16th. Paul Jackson in 17th with Klaus Mahler in 18th position. Jeff Wubker and Jim Brewster round out your top 20. 5 more, Daniel Salmon in 21st with Michael Nelson in 22nd. Lars Tihus in 23rd with Jay Ray charting in 24th, and rounding out your 25 cars today is going to be Peter Maddox from Australia.
So there we go, a pretty full grid of racers, as must be said, and on the other pronunciation there, it's actually, we've heard it's Lars Tiehaus.
Tiehaus. Okay, I got it wrong twice. Good to know.
I got it wrong way more often than you did. Don't worry, Adam. But it happens to the best of us. I have become somewhat of a maestro of absolutely butchering name pronunciations in my relatively short time doing broadcasts. I'll say short. I'm coming up to 3 years in March of next year, which is horrifying to say the very least. But as we see this field line up, I do want to draw attention to, you can see a small little jut out in the barrier right on the start-finish straightaway. What do you think the chances are that somebody hits? I have hit that in my own iRacing career, and if anybody's ever seen, I think it was Elliott Sadler at Pocono way back in the day, hit the wall at a weird angle on the back straightaway and ripped out the engine. It was very similar to that. So if you hit that part of the wall, do be careful. It being a street course, some of the barriers can jut out at some very odd angles, which adds to the abject horror that some of these competitors are going to be feeling.
That one right there, we just watched the leader, Mikey Pollard, come through the corner. That one is going to cause massive issues. It always does, no matter what car you're in. That's the one that I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast, and I think we are going to see some issues right there for sure. But really, those issues, you would think they would come. We are going to have some first lap. I'll be surprised if we don't have any first lap drama here. But they start coming towards the middle/end of the race. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that drivers just, I mean, this is a very demanding racetrack, even in the sim. It takes a lot of concentration. You just lose concentration for half a second around here, and you can get lulled to sleep because some of these straightaways are super long. So yeah, just it's a concentration factor. And as you mentioned, those tire barriers, Ron, they will be sticking out. Looks like we're already green here.
Yeah, very short run to that start-finish line with the green flag out and the drivers on their way. We are racing today at Long Beach for round number 8. That's Mikey Pollard getting off to a flyer of a start. Chris Cash got to look to try and keep the momentum rolling and maybe trying to go for a move on the outside, heading their way down to turn number 1. Pollard going to be hard on the brakes, down the gears. He's going to go. Pollard holds on to the race lead. Chris Cash slotted in P2 as we got a big wreck as they head their way off through turn number 1. Antonio involved in all that. More drivers coming to blows a little bit farther up the road. Trent Kramer, I think, popped up into the air. Dmitry Lukanov was able to get away with that, but everybody else behind all piling in. It's been a hectic start, as you expected, here at Long Beach.
Yep, it has. Top 3 now. That allows them to break away, so now they just have to keep doing what they're doing. Really don't need to battle yet, unless you do want to get around Mikey Pollard here, which it looks like Mikey Pollard is going to be the class of the field today, but he did not. His qualifying pace was the fastest, but it wasn't extremely fast. But yeah, looking here now, it's going to be super interesting to see what these drivers behind him can do, and we will get a replay of that crash eventually. We're just going to let everything kind of level out here, and then we'll go ahead and get it. But really, for Jorg Mani, And actually, this is not good either. Antonio Reese was involved in that. Jorg Mani up into P4. Antonio Reese involved in that first lap.
Yeah, Antonio involved in all that, so unfortunately for 007, he has been shaken and stirred here at the start of this race. That's such a shame for him to get caught up in that drama right at the very beginning. I think Kevin Adrian and Paul Jackson also had their own fair share of drama. Not sure if they got a piece of this accident or had their own little incident, but they both have meatball flags. That's going to cause them to have to come down pit lane. As we take a look at all the drama heading downtown into turn number 1, there's actually contact heading through there with Antonio Reese piling into all of it. Nothing that he could have done there as a driver. That really started off was Andrew Moran. I think it was him and Dmitry Lukanov who made the contact as they headed their way through turn number 1 that sent Moran off. And unfortunately for Antonio, he just pile drove into that. Nothing that he could do in that situation, as we'll actually take a look at it from Moran's perspective in that number 99 car, heading his way into turn number 1. So many different spots to try and hit the brakes that it can create that fair share of stack up, and that's what happened there.
And it's unfortunate too. I mean, I think there looks like there may have been a bit of net code there as well, which I know iRacing does not like you to say, but it is what it is. I mean, when you're on online sim racing, a lot of this stuff will happen. So we're going to look at Andrew Moran's right rear here and see if there was a bit of net code. iRacing thought that the car inside was going to pop out, and I don't think he did. Antonio Reese gets really good on the brakes here. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, to say the least, that happens, because I think they probably would have gotten through that corner okay. They were leaving each other enough space. You can't leave too much space, especially into turn 1, especially lap 1. Really, nothing either one of those drivers could do, and is extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, it's such a shame for them to all get taken out of this race in the blink of an eye, as Paul Jackson has come down pit lane, nearly ending off in disaster, heading through the hairpin. Stevie Ray in the midst of some battling right outside of the top 10. It's himself, Dan Woodsack, and David Lehman involved in this little train of cars, as Jackson has now come down pit lane to serve that meatball flag, and Kevin Adrian going to have to follow in suit. If he doesn't serve that penalty, he will eventually get hit with a disqualification. That was something that I didn't know for the longest time on iRacing, that if you hold out and don't serve that meatball, you will eventually get whacked with a DQ. So hopefully that he can avoid that. As Michael Nelson had his own share of drama. He's actually gone into the pits with a meatball flag of his own. And let's see, as he heads his way into turn number 8, is it the tire barrier that you mentioned? It is the tire barrier that you mentioned there, Adam.
Yep, and that was the pileup that I mentioned afterwards. And that, luckily, that did not happen on lap 1 when everybody was together. I think turn 1 kind of spread people out just a little bit, but yeah, that's going to be happening most of the day. These drivers have to stay vigilant here, doing what they can, the best they can, to try to stay out of the walls. If you stay out of the walls here, I mean, those tire barriers stick out 2 freaking feet compared to the rest of the racetrack, and you think you can take more racetrack than you can around here, and it just catches people out. And again, it's just the nature of this racetrack. And I do want to give a shout out to our producer here, Guido Marzucchi, who is going to be running into some awesome SDK production issues. I have produced Long Beach way too many times to count, and the amount of crashes that that are gonna get flags here, especially going through the final corner, because they have to slow down to I'm pretty sure my 6-month-old daughter can get around quicker than these drivers can run around turn 12 around this racetrack, and it always flags it as a crash for us. So have fun with that one, Guido.
You know, it's at times like these where I'm very happy that I haven't produced a race at Long Beach yet. I did do race control for a race at Long Beach, where our the scoring software that I was using for that, the server died midway through the race. So we had to run half the race under yellow just to make sure we could all sort the field out manually, which it has to be my version of hell. There have been many times, especially my time in race control, where I cried myself to sleep, and that was actually the first time I ever had to do that, as that's Daniel Salmon and Lars High House swapping spots. May have a swap-roo once again, as Salmon not getting a good exit out of turn number 8. That tire barrier, I think, has taken more safety rating and I rating from drivers than a rookie street stock race has. It is so great. It takes a big chunk out of the racing line as you head your way coming out of there. Frankly, there is no winning. There is no way to to go ran there smoothly is only who can go through there the least terribly, as I think Kevin Adrian about to get whacked with a DQ because he has yet to serve that meatball flag. Not sure if he's aware of the fact that he has a meatball flag, as you can see him heading his way down into turn number 1 right now. Looks like he still has it currently, but either way, if he doesn't come in to serve that soon, he's going to be in for a world of hurt. I wonder if he's maybe just holding out to get as close as he can to the start of the pit window opening up.
Yeah, I think so. And again, like I mentioned, is we have another wreck into turn 1, and that was a big one. Dan Witzak involved in that as well. He has 3 laps to serve that. He is now on his 3rd lap. He has to serve it at the end of this lap, or oh my goodness, Dan, look, the driver, that was Jim Brewster in front, bouncing off the wall. Seems to be everything okay. Dan Witzak going into 1 just loses the rear end, and looks like there was a sympathy spin by whoever was behind Dan at that point. Yeah, bit of a sympathy spin there. I believe probably saw Dan spinning, and you get a little bit spooked. And these Formula Fords, you have to really be confident when you turn in, and any adjustments or any braking on the turn in just causes the rear end to lose quite a bit of grip very, very quickly there. But back up here at the front, I thought that was Trenton Kramer. That is Trenton Kramer a lap down. That was about to be very impressive if Trent was able to track these guys down already.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you'd probably have to hook up some jet engines onto that car to actually reel him in and overtake for position, as there's the DQ for Kevin Adrian. Did not serve that black flag, so that's going to take him out of this race. Things going from bad to worse, even worse still for him, and it's a dream scenario for his main championship rival in Spec 2 of Dmitry Lukanov. Wait for the alien abduction to come here in a couple of moments' time. Just see him disappear and completely vanish off the screen here. I'm waiting for it to happen. Come on, iRacing. Eventually you can do it. It's do. There we go, finally. So the aliens have finally caught up with Kevin Adrian. Aliens have slow reaction times here. Who would have thunk? But unfortunate for Kevin Adrian, and it's music to the ears of his Spec 2 championship rival, Dmitry Lukanov, who will build on that gap even more. Yeah. Doubly so considering that Lukanov is at the tail end of this battle for the race lead overall.
Well, here's the deal, Ron. At this point, Dmitry Lukanov now knows as Trent gets loose again and back into another wall. I was hanging out with Trenton Kramer. Back to Dmitry Lukanov here in just a second. I was hanging out with Trenton before the race, and he did mention that he just wasn't really feeling it around here today. And, you know, it's not often that you see Trenton Kramer not really feeling it, just turns in, and, again, the rear end of the car just goes around on him. Yeah, just welcome to Formula Fords. But yeah, back up to Dmitry Lukanov here. Dmitry, sitting in P3 overall, now knows that Kevin Adrian has been DSQ'd. Ron, if you're in Dmitry's position, you are within striking distance of winning this race as a Spec 2 driver. But you also have to worry about the point situation. What do you do?
Ooh, that is super tough, because as much as he does have the opportunity to really grow that gap here today, considering that Kevin Adrian at best is going to finish in P19, it's tough. If maybe it's just me having the sensibilities of an old man at many points in time, and also having the back of one as well. But if I were Dmitry Lukanov, I would maybe take it easy and just try and bring it home. But I can certainly understand if he wanted to go for broke and try and extend out that lead even more. I mean, he's finished on the overall podium multiple times throughout the season, including a P2 finish a couple of weeks ago. I believe that was at Rodskogan, as we see side-by-side battling with Stevie Ray and Ian Anderson.
Great defensive.
That's the battle for 10th right now.
It is. Very, very good defensive driving by Stevie Ray as well, holding that inside line, but it looks like Ian Anderson is still going to find a way around him. Ian Anderson is not a slow driver here. Qualified, not the greatest, but you can see him. Yanshi Lin is another one that's not in the race today that is very good. I think you wonder if maybe practice. Ooh. Daniel Verone got a replay here. Uh-oh. Oh, is this where is it going to be the corner that I'm, yup, there it is.
Turn
see,
5.
I mean, I'm telling you what, you see that curbing, you can see that curbing there on the inside. It doesn't look that bad but it is way worse than it looks. And I think a lot of it has to do with the camper going away from the racetrack. So it's falling away from you, and you've got the curbing on the right-hand side there, and you're also turning right. Causes quite a few issues. And Ron, speaking of, losing sleep at night and all of that, your father, Mr. Ron Maunz Sr., is in the chat, also talking crap about you, which he normally does. But what I did want to mention is, speaking of marbles, I think between yourself and your father, he was speaking about marbles and ducks. I think you got the marbles and your father got the ducks. And the reason I'm going there is, how did the Halloween night festivities go with the homemade lasers that your father made on the front steps?
Okay, so I think it was on the air a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about that. I think it was after XSLR, because I know you came into the commentary booth and asked about that on one of the XSLR shows a couple of weeks ago. But to fill everybody in, as we take a look at a replay to see Jeff Wubker in an off-track moment, he had into one. No. The tire barrier strike again. That Acura wall has taken many a driver's iRating thus far in its time on iRacing, and unfortunately there got taken out of contention to slide down a P17. But to those who aren't aware, a couple of weeks ago on XSLR, there was a laser and fog machine contraption that my dad was putting together to decorate the house on Halloween. My neighborhood usually really cranks it up a notch on Halloween. That's also the time that most of my neighbors see me for the one and only time that calendar year when I come out of my cave. Wasn't the case this year, because I was on 3 separate broadcasts from about 4:30 that night through to midnight. I was on 4 separate shows. I couldn't really get out of either of them. One was a radical broadcast on the iRacing channel, which I haven't missed one of those since they got started off and left PBS Kids that they used to be on. I haven't missed one of those in a while, so I couldn't really get out of that. The other was of a Formula Ford Festival time slot that I was broadcasting. And another was for a season finale of a series I started commentating back in April, and I really didn't want to miss out on Championship weekend. So I didn't get to see it in person outside of like 20 minutes when I was outside trying to get some fresh air. But according to my dad, Halloween was a big letdown. I think we had 40 kids roll through the neighborhood, which is probably the lowest that we've had in quite some time. There was a threat of rain during it, but I'm happy to report that no children were blinded by the laser contraption that my father put together. So thankfully, neither my dad or myself are going to be picking up a class action lawsuit from a child's mother somewhere here in the northeast of Philadelphia. That's Daniel Samagang, and moved on Jim Brewster to swiftly and abruptly move on from talking about class action lawsuits. He jumps his way up into 10th, make that 9th as Anderson loses it into 1.
Yes, and all the aircraft landed safely that night, so congratulations to Papa Ron for getting that one figured out. But we're going to watch Ian Anderson. Turn 1 is becoming more of a point of contention than I thought it was going to be at the beginning of this race, Ron. I thought it was going to be turn 5, but we're seeing a lot of drivers just lose the rear on entry into turn 1. I mean, and here's something that we're going to have to start looking at here. Guido, if you can go back one more time on this replay. If we look at the left rear tire, I wonder if some of these drivers are getting on the brakes while they're on that painted line. And that may be what's causing this, that pit exit line, as you mentioned, Ron, at the beginning of the broadcast.
Yeah, even though we may be racing in the dry, that can hurt the grip quite a lot. And you can see as soon as he turned in, as soon as he hit the brakes, frankly, already getting a little bit squirrely. I will say these Formula Ford cars are very susceptible to locking up the rears and just spinning it off into the turn. It's basically, we're going to be running some rally cars a little bit later on today here on SMB with round number 9 of XSLR. It's basically like going down the road and yanking the handbrake in a rally car. That's pretty much what it's like whenever you have to head into a braking zone in these cars, as that's Lars tie house.
Go back.
Gonna back it into the fence, heading through turn number 8.
We have to go back and watch that one again. I'm wondering if these painted lines, this is something that I didn't mention. I'm wondering if these drivers are getting on the brakes, because as you know, we're driving, even though iRacing shouldn't model that, but you wonder if this is what's causing issues. We'll see when Lars gets on the brakes. I mean, as you can see, there's lines all over the place here. Red line on the outside. I mean, it could be because the way that these drivers are losing, it's just so snappy. I mean, here's what I can say. It's catching them off guard because they're doing the same things over and over and over again. As we're watching Stevie Ray now doing the same thing probably into turn 7. It's yeah. Look at there's something happening here, Ron.
Something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's Stevie again. The car turned back around as he headed his way out of turn number 8. These cars have definitely had a hit when it comes to the way they handle. I remember the first couple of seasons when I was commentating the old Tuesday night Ray Esports series when we ran the Formula Fords on track with the Formula Vs, and you'll be able to catch both of those in the next race of the Ray Esports Club Racing League this upcoming Wednesday. That was a terrible plug. I apologize. But no, when I first started to drive these FF 1600 cars on iRacing, I really liked it because it felt like I was driving my old shifter car. You'd be able to go into the turns, slam on the brakes, go down the gears, really use the engine braking to help you out, and just slam over the curbs as if it was nobody's business. Even in an open wheel car, they could handle the curbs quite well. They had a pretty significant rework a couple of seasons ago. They changed the suspension, they changed the tire model, they changed a whole lot of things, and personally, in my view, it kind of butchered the way these cars drive. They just feel so different, so alien. You're pretty much, I can't even say walking around on eggshells is the right way to describe it. You're pretty much walking around on paper-thin ice that's separating yourself between you and a very freezing cold bath.
Yeah, both these and the Formula Vs have some of the same issues. I mean, the Formula Vs, I don't get me wrong, I enjoy driving both of these cars, but they're not my favorite cars in the service just because of the amount of slip angle that you almost are required to put in to be fast in both of these types of cars, at least in iRacing, and I'm sure we do have some real-life racers around here that can tell us if you need that much slip angle in real life as well, but it's just you're flirting with the edge. I mean, you're on the edge. It's just you got to be on the edge in any car you drive. I get that, but this one, you're never comfortable with. You're always just a little bit uncomfortable as you turn in to these corners, and it's just one of those things that a lot of these drivers have mastered. I have not. Real quickly here, we've got 11 people watching right now in the broadcast, and to all those 11 people, with the exception of Jason Chin, Kevin Adrian, and by the way, Kevin, I'm going to get to you, and Papa Ron, go ahead and drop a comment. You don't have to talk much. You don't really have to say anything. Just say, hey guys, how's it going? It does help the broadcast out quite a bit, get the numbers up, and we all like numbers. I know Joshua Wilkie likes big numbers, as do all of us that are working here for Slow Motion Broadcasting. But real quickly, Kevin Adrian did say he got meatballed, but the car was perfect. He had to get in one more lap. He tried to run that 4th lap, Ron, to get to that pit window, and it did not work out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting. I was thinking, okay, maybe he's just trying to run it out until that pit window opens, as much as the disqualification obviously wrecks your race in the blink of an eye. Coming in for a pit stop outside that pit window and necessitating a second run down pit lane, that just about ruins your race too. So I can't blame him for trying something a little bit different. It's a shame that just didn't work out for him, as Jörg Monty just said in a quick time, they're the fastest lap of the race at the moment from Jörg. Nice to see him running strongly out there on the racetrack. One of the first racers throughout this field, certainly in the Masters category, to break below that 126 bracket, a 125.9. So that's a darn good lap time.
I mean, when you say break below the 126 bracket, Rod, he ran a 125.998. So he did break below it, but it was close, but nonetheless, Jörg does have the fastest lap of the race, and he has about 20 minutes to try to get up to the back of this top 3. It's just, man, I don't know if he's going to have the time, because all of these drivers are very, very close in time. Mikey Pollard, last lap, 26.3, 26.2 for Chris Cash, 26.2 for Dimitri, 25.96 now for Jörg. Did he just run another fastest lap? 25.94 now for Mikey Pollard. Times are starting to come down.
Yeah, specifically, it's a 125.935 from Mikey Pollard.
Oh, wow, now you're being specific, Ron. Okay, I see how it is.
We're breaking out the specifics during this. I will say, kind of talking about Jörg Monty breaking below that 126 bracket, it may have only been by 2 thousandths of a second, but he did break below that bracket, so he did get into the 125s, albeit just barely. It's in the same sense that if somebody broke into your house overnight and only stole the toilet paper, you would still mark that off as a house robbery, would you not? That's actually what we call in the city of Philadelphia, Holmesburg welcome.
If it was 2020, toilet paper was a massive commodity back then, but nowadays, I'm go ahead and have my toilet paper. Just don't take my racing rig, please. Anyways, back here to the race again. Wait a minute, we can't go back. What did you call it in Philadelphia, Ron?
Oh, we call that a Holmesburg welcome.
Oh, Holmesburg welcome. Okay, copy that. I will talk to you after the race to ask you exactly what that means, because we do have a battle here still on the top 3. It's kind of a battle, but I think we've kind of answered our own question on what Dmitry Lukinov is wanting to do here. I really do think he's extremely happy with where he's at in P3 right now overall. P1 in Spec 2 with his closest, with the fastest lap, I might add, or as our producer might add. He's just taking it easy through here. I mean, when I say taking it easy, to keep up with these two in front of him, he's not driving easily, Ron, but he's doing what he has to do. And Stevie Ray with another issue here coming into turn 8.
Oh, and let's see. It's at the end of that back straightaway, heading off through the parking lot section at the end of this lap, spins his way off through turn number 10. He avoids a barrier, thankfully, but that is going to be a spin nonetheless. One more thing, kind of talking about the unique quirks and features of these FF1600 cars. The grooved tires means that these racers don't have to worry about pitting for rains. However, it does mean that these tires don't work too well in the dry and don't work too well in the rain either. There is a lesser of two evils, though, and that is running these cars in the dry. I think, Adam, how many times have you gotten the opportunity to cover a Formula Ford race in the rain?
A couple times, I believe, and, well, I don't know if I've ever covered one in the rain. I've been in. I have raced in the rain in these cars, and, Ron, you hit the nail on the head. They don't drive good in the dry. They don't drive good in the wet. They just drive. And that's how these cars drive. And the fact that some of these drivers are able to get as much time out of these cars as they're getting is extremely impressive. I mean, it takes just an absolute amazing amount of skill to do that. Oh my goodness, the producer has pulled out this is a new one. Oh my God, good job, Guido.
And we got some awesome graphics here on SMB. Guido doing a fantastic job working all the cameras and the graphics in the virtual production hall. They're giving you all these graphics. He knows a lot more about SDK than I think I will ever know, albeit I can't remember where my keys are more often than not, as I think there may have been some drama a little bit farther behind with Daniel Salmon. Let's take a look at here as he heads his way down at the end of this small little flat out blast into 6 and 7. Very tricky on the exit here, but he keeps it smooth through there. May have been turn number 8, the tire barrier on the outside, and survey says yes.
Dude, I don't know what's going on with turn 8 right now. That's been at least 3 drivers that we have caught go sideways and into turn 8. I expected turn 8 to be a problem, Ron, like we mentioned, but I expected that barrier to really be the problem. Drivers driving out too wide and catching that barrier before it ends, the tire barrier, before it ends into the concrete barrier. I didn't expect drivers to be losing it before they even got there.
Yeah, that tire barrier is rough, but that turn period is very tricky to try and psych out. You go from probably about 5 to, I don't know, even probably about 8 car widths wide, and it bottlenecks down into at most 2. It is so tricky as you head your way off through there. And with that bottlenecking effect, you're aiming for an apex that simply isn't there. You're aiming for an apex that's probably about 300 yards away from where you actually have to go to. It is such a bizarre turn to try and nail down. It's caught me out many times just hot lapping or racing around here. Got out many a racer thus far. High attrition rate up to this point. The 25 drivers that we have classified, only 23 of them took the start, and of those 23, currently 15 out there on the road, as we can add a 16th. That is Daniel Salmon has rejoined the circuit, repaired the damage on the back end of that 659 machine, and will rejoin the race in P16. So that'll be how it works out for him. Meanwhile, jumping back to the front, Mikey Pollard, Chris Cash, and Dmitry Lukinov still running their own little train as a pit stops approach.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Dmitry Lukinov has one more hurdle to get through. Just in case Long Beach wasn't as big enough a hurdle by itself. Got one more hurdle, and that's the pit stops. Dimitri has to be good on these pit stops, at least maybe to stay close to these drivers. He's done everything he has to do so far. Pit window is definitely open at this point. Now it's just when they come in. So, Dimitri, if you're listening to the broadcast, uncheck tires, my friend. Do not take tires that will hurt you. And we're going to make sure, we're going to see, I think, as this pit cycle starts, I've seen it in last week's broadcast as well, Ron. A lot of these drivers do not uncheck their tires, and it takes forever to change tires on a Formula Ford. But looking here at Jorg Monty, down to 3 seconds. He has slowly closed this gap in. He does have a bit of lap traffic ahead of him now, so we'll see how that works out. I don't know who that driver is ahead of him at the moment, but it is the 535 car of Lars Tyhouse. We'll see what happens here. Jorg, I don't think, is really in too big of a hurry to get around him. Lars lets him out of the way anyway. Still 3.1 seconds. So Jorg is slowly closing that gap, Ron.
Yeah, Jorg is bringing it back slowly but surely, but that is a pretty big gap to try and overcome, even with how good of a driver he is and the good lap times that he sets. Probably going to hope for some pit stop chicanery to go on for these top three to maybe have a shot at an overall podium. I'll pull up the results here in just a couple of moments. I'm kind of go through the other Masters drivers and how well they have done thus far this season. There has been one Masters winner to grab a podium, and it was Jorg Monty. It was back at Rudskogen a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, in fact, where he finished that race in P3 in a race where, interestingly enough, your top three comprised of drivers in completely different classes. Maurizio Nazelli won there. Dmitry Lukanov finished in P2, and Jorg Monty walked away with the podium. Could we maybe have another situation on our hands, this time with Mikey Pollard returning to victory lane for the first time since Alton Park? Will we see Christopher Cash go into victory lane for the first time this season? Or could we see Dmitry Lukanov break through and finally score that elusive overall win? I believe he would become the first driver from the entirety of this Weekend Warriors season across all three of our series here in the Weekend Warriors world to win a race overall as a non-Spec 1 competitor. If anybody can do it, hand it to Lukanov.
Yeah, Jason Chin actually just mentioned here, Dimitri is always so fast. He goes much more than his iRating suggests. The iRating system isn't the greatest here. We've got a lot of drivers that just do league races. Hey, you're talking to one, or I'm talking right now. My iRating is a bit low. I do some official races. I said do. I do official races quite a bit, but my all right, Ron. My iRating is definitely a bit lower than I think it should be, and that's just because of the league racing that people do. Dimitri is quick. His iRating is a bit low, but Dimitri still is. We're looking at a lot of these Spec 2 drivers, actually. I mean, Klaus Mahler sitting in 6th place. If you look at Spec 2 compared to Spec 1, they're all over the place anyways, no matter how it is. I mean, I think just the skill level in general here in not just the Formula Fords, but the Weekend Warriors is just that good.
Yeah, we've got so many talented racers in this series. A lot of them I've gotten the opportunity to cover in some official broadcasts that I do of the Formula Ford official series here on iRacing, and I'm fully with you there, Adam, in terms of not really running too many officials. I think, God, I cannot even tell you the last time I ran an official race. I was looking through to try and see where it was. iRacing won't even load up the results archive because I haven't raced an official in the past 30 days. It probably has not been this year, if I am being completely honest. With my broadcast schedule, I can't necessarily say that I have the time to do it. Unlike my son, I ring my bells on daily. Okay, there is some context behind that. Ever since my dad retired back in March, he's been making wind chimes, so make of that what you will.
Oh, Papa Ron in there. I heard the producer Guido start giggling, and I had to look at the chat. Yes, I'm sure you are talking about your. Dad. Yeah, you're talking about your wind chimes, Ron. I bet you are. But looking here at the first of the leaders, when I say the leaders, P4 of Jorg Monty coming into the pits. Now, I would expect everyone else to be coming in a bit later than that. But Dmitry Lukinov has been dropped from Chris Cash by almost a second at this point. He's still there, but really, Chris Cash is starting to put some pressure on Mikey Pollard for the first time in this race.
Yeah, so Chris Cash starting to turn up the wick as we get into the final 10 minutes. Monty out of pit lane right now. He's going to exit out in fourth unless Klaus Muller can get a move put on him. Never mind, Muller going to come down pit lane himself. So now we've got a three-car chase down up at the front with the pit stop still looming. Monty, the first to break away down in pit lane of these racers running up towards the front. He's on track for a win in the Masters category unless a major drama goes down with him. But these drivers in the top three going to be close together. I wonder if they will be unified in their call to come down pit lane as well. Don't usually see that too much in these front pack battles, but when you do, you don't usually see everybody exit out in the exact same order that they entered in. Keep an eye on these three as they come out of the final turn. Will we see a driver turn down pit lane? We will not. The top three stay out for yet another lap.
Dmitry Lukinov is in the best position here. He can follow either one of these two into the pits to try to hold on to the back of them. Mikey Pollard is also in a good position, but you got to be a little bit worried about maybe an overcut here, which could happen. You wonder if Chris Cash is just hanging in the exhaust fumes of Mikey Pollard until Mikey goes in. Will Mikey hang it out late enough to where Chris has to follow in? And another issue is, I did mention the slipstream. Chris might have enough fuel to go an extra lap here to Mikey Pollard and be able to get that overcut done. It's just interesting. But right now, Dmitry Lukinov sitting in the catbird seat, absolutely loving what he's doing right now. He can come in with either one of those two and still probably be in P3 on the way out, unless Jorg Monty had a great pit stop or one of those three don't have such a great pit stop.
So we shall see Mikey Pollard, Chris Cash, and Dmitry Lukinov on the newer end of drivers here in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. Pollard's been around for a couple of seasons. Chris Cash, I think, made his debut at this exact racetrack only last season, and Dmitry Lukinov made his Formula Ford and General Weekend Warriors debut only back at round number 2 of this season. So we'll have to see if some inexperience may play a role in that, as Lukinov going to break away as those two come down pit lane. So Mikey Pollard and Chris Cash going to make that decision to come down pit lane with just a tick under 7 minutes left to go in this race. Lukinov going to stay out for one more lap, use this opportunity to stretch out his legs and try and set a good time. So as we keep our eyes to see where Pollard and Chris Cash exit out in relative to each other and in relative to Jorg Monty, we'll have to see what Lukinov can do in the clean air.
Yeah, here comes Jorg Monty. He's about to come into that final carousel section before the final corner. Looking here, they're both on pit exit though, and it looks like Mikey Pollard and Chris Cash, business as usual. Mikey Pollard ahead of Chris Cash. They come in, or they come out about where they come in. Here comes Jorg Monty down the front straight now. I think they're going to be able to get out with absolutely no problems. Actually, really good stops by both of those drivers. Back out onto the racetrack, and here we go. Now it's time to see that interval right now. 37 seconds to Mikey Pollard. The pit lane time is around 49.8 seconds, it's looking like. So if I'm looking at this, if the delta's 49 seconds and they're only 37 seconds behind, I think this could really cause some absolute massive issues for Dmitry Lukinov as he's now in the pits. Paul Jackson, though, going into turn 1. Oh, he just absolutely missed that corner, Ron.
Oh, center punch it big time. The entire right-hand side going to be crushed in as a result of that. Lukinov gonna make that call to come down pit lane. Of course, there is a bit of disparity between that 37 seconds and the amount of time that these racers spend down pit lane, because you're still driving out there on the circuit when you're not in the pits. I think Lukinov, depending on how things work out, he could very well exit out with the race lead. Think of how long he was in third in the opening stanza of this race, and think about the fuel saving that he could have done. Lukinov now trying funneling his way down pit lane. It takes forever to get out of the pits here at Long Beach. Let's see what he can do. Pollard closing up that gap, closing still. Lukanov hits that double green cone. He's now back up to speed. Dmitry Lukanov going to exit out with the race lead. Not going to be a lot, though. Keep an eye on the exit. He's going to have a rough approach through one. Pollard going to close up big time, side by side as they head their way into the fan section. Lukanov holding on to the lead for now, but Pollard smelling blood in the water.
All right, so now Lukanov's tires have cooled down just a little bit. What this is doing for Chris Cash is it's going to bring Chris Cash back into this equation. Mikey Pollard wants to get around Dmitry Lukanov as quick as he can, but that may not be as easy as we think it is. Dmitry Lukanov was able to hang on to the back of both of these drivers through that whole first stint, so we're going to have to keep an eye on this. Chris Cash is really going to have to be driving that bright blue Formula Ford back up there to the back of those drivers, especially through these sections, before Mikey Pollard can get a sniff, and he might do it right here.
Yeah, let's see as they head their way into the braking zone of turn number 9. Pollard not going to fight it too much, but Lukanov with a slide. He gets so close to that outside concrete barrier. He held on to it, though. Holds on to the race lead, but the gap is minuscule between himself and Mikey Pollard. If these two start to battle, keep an eye on your P3 runner of Chris Cash. He can very well reel in these racers with the snap of a finger and get a move done lickety-split. Here they go across the line to begin yet another lap. Dmitry Lukanov over Mikey Pollard, but Pollard closing up that gap. The draft is strong in these Formula Fords as he looks for it down the inside into turn number 1. Battle-less late breakers, and Pollard gonna jump into that top spot.
Pollard gets him now as Lukanov going to try to get him back, and look at what that's done. Chris Cash back in the battle now. Mikey Pollard has already checked out to the tune of 0.3 of a second, so we're going to have to see what Chris Cash does now. Lukanov has gained another position. Great for his championship hopes here. Again, as we did mention at the beginning of the broadcast, that we did have quite a bit of an issue with Kevin Adrian. So right now, Dmitry Lukanov, these are all points that he's just eating up. So will he battle Chris Cash as Mikey Pollard is checking out? Goodbye.
Yeah, Mikey Pollard looking to drive off into the sunset, but will Dmitry Lukanov let him do that in the final 2.5 minutes of this race? I think we will have 2 laps left to go at the line. Pollard wants to try and put an exclamation mark on his second win this season. Think of how long it has been, how much adversity Mikey Pollard has had to battle back from ever since his opening, and at this point, 1 win so far this season at Alton Park, all the way back in round number 1. It looked like he was going to try and win the title. Then Maurizio Nazelli really came in and just dominated in the opening stanza of this championship. Pollard wants to try and get a win and close up that gap, but it's not over yet. Lukanov holding on to that outside line as they head their way into turn number 1. Not able to get that move done. It's so tricky to be on the outside line. It's a turn number 1 that you pretty much have to hope for a miracle to make that move stick. And Pollard trying to drive off into the sunset, just set the fifth lap of the race last time by as well. And for Pollard, he wants to try and usurp that gap to himself and Nazelli, but time is running out in this race and in this season as Pollard just trying to drive away from Lukanov.
Well, as he's trying to drive away, you can see the rear end of that car crying. Those tires are really starting to cry on Pollard, and that's helping Lukanov stay close. Here, white flag this time by as well. And watch out, though, because if they do this again, if Pollard goes defensive into 1, which he will have to, Lukanov is closer, though. He might take a sniff here. He's going. No, he thought about it, but he gets back in line. If Pollard has to go defensive again into turn 1, Chris Cash made about 0.3 of a second as Pollard had to go defensive, but Lukanov goes wide. Oh, no, this might hurt Lukanov's chances here.
Yeah, I think Lukanov in that squared off approach heading down into the final corner may have taken him out of it, but we still got 1 more lap of racing action here at Long Beach. That's Mikey Pollard holding on to a 3.5 of a second gap. Make that 0.3, make that 2.5, closing up that gap, reeling him in. Lukanov looking for the outside once again into turn number 1 as Christopher Cash right there to pounce as well. But Pollard leads him heading out of 1 into the fan section for the final time. We look at these drivers battling and we think about what's at stake. sake, Mikey Pollard wants to try and win the Spec 1 championship, and with his main championship rival out for the foreseeable future, he just needs a result. He doesn't have to worry about besting people in a battle. He just needs to bring that car home in first as often as he can. Lukanov, meanwhile, there's two ways that he can cut this. If he finishes in P2, he's going to essentially put one hand on that Spec 2 championship crown, but if he crashes out of this race, he is really going to be smelling bad leaving this event. So Lukanov trying to see it in both sides of the coin as Christopher Cash just there. He is our wonderful camera car in all of this, seeing that battling go on right in front, but Mikey Pollard may have this as Lukanov 0.3 of a second back as they head their way into turn number 9 through the heavy braking zone for the last time in this race. Lukanov still all over the back of Pollard as they head their way through 10 into the hairpin for the final time. Mikey Pollard had to face so much trouble in the mid part of this season, but as we head into the final stanza, Pollard going to return to victory lane for the first time since September. Mikey Pollard going to get the checkered flag to win it here at Long Beach.
Great race from the top three there. Bit of attrition everywhere else as you're looking at the intervals behind them. Really no close racing going on. A lot of that had to do with the lap 1, turn 1 shenanigans that I must say. Georg Monty does come home, though, as the Masters winner. And in P4 overall, Alan DeGasis, another Masters driver, going to get some very, very good points here today with Antonio Reese going out. Alan DeGasis comes home in P5. Peterson Roca going to be there in P6, crossing the line right about now. Looking at Richard Harwood now, Spec 1 driver. Finishing third on the podium, which is crazy to me to say, Ron. Finishing third on the podium. And he was in P9.
Oh,
no, Lars Tyhouse, is he out of gas?
I think it may be David Lehman right behind that's running out of fuel. He is so slow, heading his way onto the start finish straight away. He's maybe not even going to finish inside the top 10. It's going to be close with himself and Jim Brewster. He just barely squeaks across the line to complete your top 10. Lehman going to run out of gas, a 151.2 on that last lap compared to everybody else in the 120s. So unfortunately there for Lehman, he has picked up his, I think his first Thompson trophy here in his time in the Weekend Warriors.
Yep, it is a very prestigious group. Congratulations, David. Do not be upset about that at all. It is the best trophy you could ever get. It's such an honor. I am so honored to present to you the Thompson Trophy, my friend. But with that being said, we do have some results to get to here in just a second, Ron. But well, I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of the race, but it wasn't. Basically, everything we said came true here today.
Yeah, everybody running as hard as they could from the drop of the green through to the very end. It was cool to see, very exciting, but certainly the challenge of this Long Beach circuit, striking many from the drop of the green through to the fall of the checkered. But well done to everybody who managed to finish this race. Fuel in their car or not, podium in their results page or not, it was still a darn good race here. For round number 8 of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, Mikey Pollard gets the W over Dmitry Lukanov in P2. Still got to commend Dmitry Lukanov, a win in Spec 2 once again. P2 in this series once again. He finished second in the race at Rodskogen a few weeks ago. I think if Dmitry Lukanov stays here in the Weekend Warriors, it's only a matter of time before he goes into victory lane, be assured. Christopher Cash will round out your overall podium in third, finishing second amongst the Spec 1 competitors. Jörg Monty gets another Masters win, finishing this race in fourth in front of Alan DeGasis in fifth. Peterson Rocha will finish in P6 with Richard Harwood right behind in seventh. Lars Tyhouse in P8. Klaus Muller in P9 with David Lehman running out of gas, completing your top 10.
Jim Brewster is going to come home in 11th with Stevie Ray actually up a couple positions from the start. And we do need to mention Lars Tyhouse there. P8 up 15 positions from the start, the biggest mover of the race this afternoon. Stevie Ray comes home 12th, though, with Ian Anderson in 13th, Daniel Salmon 14th, Michael Nelson in 15th. Paul Jackson, Jeff Wubker, and Daniel Verone round out your top 18. Man, our producer's on it. He's way better at flipping through this than I am. Kevin Adrian, Dan Witzak, Trenton Kramer up into 21st position. Andrew Moran, Antonio Reese, Jay Ray, Peter Maddox round out your top 25. You can see Moran, Reese, Ray, and Maddox didn't complete a lap here today. And some of that was because they didn't take the grid, and some of it was because of the lap 1, turn 1 drama. But Ron, when I'm in the booth, I just have to cover basically, like, the interview that I have to get is going to be with the guy that finished P4 this afternoon. Jorg Mani, I mentioned it, or you mentioned it in the broadcast. We didn't talk about you at all, Jorg, and that is a good thing because you finished P4. We also didn't cover you at all because there was nobody around you for most of the race.
You're actually right, and you did the right thing because it was boring as hell for me. Actually, really, I'm really starting to hate that kind of situation. Just to drive on myself, doing the same lap times than the leader guys, and but on my own, and they're just following each other the whole race, and I don't like that. Like, I'm really hate fuel saving at all. That's no fighting, no racing. That's nothing for me. It was really boring for me. It was absolutely boring for me.
Well, Jorg, sometimes boring races are actually good things because, unfortunately for your friend and your championship rival, lap 1, turn 1 got him, and we're actually watching what's about to happen going into turn 1. Antonio Reese gets involved in that. You got through that, Jorg. Did your life flash before your eyes there?
Yeah, my whole 60 years that I'm on Earth already flashed there just in front of my eyes. I still don't know how I get through there, actually. I just saw smoke, spinning cars, crashing cars, and I thought, okay, just try to find a line and that's it. That's what I did.
Yeah,
I still don't know how I did it.
Right now, we're watching as you see the smoke. You're basically talking in real time here. You can see Trenton Kramer gets involved, and the road closes for you, Jorg. And somehow, I mean, listen, I know it was a boring race for you, but I'm pretty sure the iRacing gods were there for you as you still worked as the 28 as you get into the carousel section is spinning back across you. I think the iRacing gods were like, okay, Jorg, you've been through enough. We're just going to give you a nice, easy P4.
Yeah, thank you. That's definitely something I have to pray for. Now, thanks, iRacing gods, and I love it like that. But I still don't know how I managed it. That was pure luck, I guess.
Well, Jorg, congratulations on your P4, man. I know you don't enjoy the boring racing. I've done an endurance race with you before, and I know you like to have some fun, and this probably wasn't your idea of fun other than lap 1, turn 1, but congrats on your P4, Jorg. Anybody you want to thank or shout out before we let you go?
Actually, you, Adam, this time. Once in a while, we have to thank you for doing those kind of very good broadcasts. And I hope I can race. I'm sorry, Guido. Scusa, signore.
Oh, no. Oh, the producer who you can't hear and Jorg are now getting into a battle here in my ear. But yeah, well, thank you, Jorg. Guido doesn't mean anything. All right, it's all me, 100% me.
Yeah, but Guido and Adam, we have to do one long distance race once together. That's gonna be.
We
fun.
absolutely do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got to get that scheduled here. Obviously, the way plans work out and stuff, we're going to have to figure it out. And I am 100% ready to do an endurance race with you two. But Jorg, congratulations, buddy, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, and have a nice evening, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye, Jorg. That was Jorg Mani, P4. P1, though, in the... well, he left anyway. See, I'm trying to drag people. I can't multitask at all. P1 in the in Masters, and real quickly here, Daniel Salmon, looking here. He goes, "What an incident at the start." Yeah, we covered that. Hey, Daniel, how you doing, buddy? He's I think he's happy to hear my beautiful voice. That's the best voice that's ever been on broadcasting. But other than that, Ron, we don't have anybody else here in the broadcast booth. So I think I may have taken the only one today.
Yeah, I think we really need to stock up on the snacks in the interview waiting area. I've been telling Mr. Wilkie that he needs to put in some Chips Ahoy that are not moldy. I should have left that cookie brand up to interpretation to figure out which company would give us the most amount of money for it to be name dropped here on the show. But no, it's...
I can tell you that I did take the broccoli back out of the booth. So that the broccoli is not the issue either. So I don't know what's going on over here, but it might be the moldy chips. I mean, he does live in Canada. It rains quite a bit up there. You know, there might be some moldy chips. That's got to be the issue.
Yeah, potentially that could do it. Canadian potato chips sounds like the least appetizing thing that I've ever heard in my entire life. But you know, we'll leave it at that so I don't get my pay docked here. But we'll go through the upcoming shows that we've got here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Got you covered pretty much week in and week out, nearly day in and day out here on SMB. Always have the action to look forward to. Of course, later on we have got round number 7 for the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. They're going to be running at VIR on the Grand Course, a track configuration that I can best describe as looking like an angry tapeworm, but that's going to be a fun one. XSLR going to be returning to the rally cars at the Daytona Rallycross track later on tonight. SRG F4 going to be at Aragon this upcoming Tuesday. SRG F3 at Donington, along with round number 1 for group number 3 of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. Formula V Weekend Warriors action going to be at Lebanon, and shout out Guido for getting the W in the Formula V race yesterday here on SMB. The Prince of the Virgins grabbing that crown there. FF1600s are going to be at Oran Park for the next round of the championship, and then Imola for the Spec Racer Fords, along with the Liberty Bell Series returning for round number 2 of their season at the Charlotte Roval on Sunday, November the 16th. All the action to look forward to here on SMB. Gives you a very good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. I'm concerned as to whether or not I was hearing some giggling in my ear. Should I ask Adam?
Yeah, you should. So Zippy picked up on the moldy chips from Canadian comment and goes, "Damn, dude, what did Canadian chips ever do to you, Ron? What did they do to you, Ron?" I'm on Zippy's side here.
I don't know. It's just like, you know, of all the countries, just Canada timed with potato chips doesn't really sound too. I've never been north of the border. I feel like I need to change that and try some of the potato chips. And if they are rancid, I will leave a firm but fair review, I feel, on the next broadcast that I am a part of after that event takes place. But before I start slandering any other snack options across this country, I will ask you, though, Adam, about the next round for the Spec Racer Ford's VIR coming up later on today. That is, I'm not sure if you've ever seen the Grand Course. Just imagine the serpentine belt in your car blowing out and ending up on the ground.
Yeah, VIR Grand. VIR is always good no matter what layout it is. I do wish it was the full layout, but the Grand Course is going to be a lot of fun there in the Spec Racer Fords. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And guys, I'm going to have to do it. Shouting out my own league here, Cross Series League Racing tonight. It's going to be fun as well, Ron, with you on that one. So we've got 2 very, very good races coming up here within the next few hours.
Yeah, and that's going to be very, very fun. Going to be on the comms and cams for that broadcast. Always fun doing XSLR with the dry Thompson. So that's going to be interesting.
The worst Thompson.
See, I can always look forward to those shows. Again, update as to how like college sports teams are doing in the state of Pennsylvania, when the only stick and ball sports that I really care about are basically baseball, hockey, and curling. So that's usually my source of information before those XSLR shows get up and rolling, and the wonderful graphics that we have, along with the wonderful graphics here on these Weekend Warriors shows. But before I start slandering any more foreign countries' cuisine, I think that'll just about do it here for round number 8 of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors here at Long Beach. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Adam Thompson joining me in the commentary booth, and Guido Marzucchi working all the cameras and the graphics in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.
Meow.
battle